So this question wanted us to first find a sticker price. Sticker price is basically everything that they mention except for the trade-in. And do not add taxes. Okay, that's the bottom line. It ended up being this much. It's on page 3, right? How much will the car cost them after tax? We are not, there's no trade-in at this point. So we basically omit that trade-in part and we just add taxes, okay? So it's $63,011.20. So there's a very important, I'm gonna highlight this part. You should too, if you flip through your notes. That part right there, I'll just make a note that 6311.2 will result in a rounding error. You're going to lose half a mark if you don't put the 0. So if this ends in anything, that if this had been exactly 0, you can actually omit the 2 zeros at the end. But I always put the 2 zeros in if I think of it, like, just to be sure. So you can't just, so that's something worth noting. How much did you pay in taxes alone? I just basically repeat my steps, and this time I just have 0.12, so that's how much I paid in taxes. Can you imagine that? This is more than my first beater car that I ever bought, and someone is just paying it in taxes, right? So that's a lot of money. And then I put a twist on it, where all of a sudden you mention to the dealer, hey, I do actually have a trade-in. Because you want to know, first of all, are they going to like jack up the price on you because they know you have a trade-in? So you mention you have a trade-in. At that case, I take my sticker, I subtract the trade-in in brackets, which means you have to first subtract, and then we multiply it by 1.12. And so you end up paying this much after tax. So make sure you write that down and you have it in your notes so you know how to approach a question like that. I'm going to later on break the taxes down. What do I mean by that? There have been questions where they ask you to calculate the PST and the GST separately. Right now, we're doing it all together. But there have been instances where the province makes a table and you need to fill it in separately. So I'll show you how to do that. It's not a whole lot. It's not very difficult, but you need to be aware of that. Okay. Let's keep going. This is another concept here. I am very sure that most of you are familiar with this. On page 4, the fact that your asset is going to lose value, right? It's going to depreciate. So I'm going to highlight that so that I know I've covered it. A car can lose up to 20% of its value just after that first year. And over the first 5 years, your car could almost lose half of its value. Can you imagine that? That's what I would suggest to you. I'm just suggesting, you can make your own decisions, but if you want a nicer, newer car, wait a couple of years, like wait 4 or 5 years, because then it will have lost most of its value. Because look at if you see, these are different brands and every brand drops faster, like in value, right? But there's a point where, look at this line right here. I'm going to make a line right here. Okay? It slows down. Depreciation slows down. It still loses its value, but it kind of plateaus. It's a lot slower. Okay? And this is really fast depreciation, so you lose a lot more the first, in this case, the first 9 years. So there's like that breaking point. So anyways, the bottom line is if you wait 4 or 5 years, you already let the car depreciate quite a bit, and then you pick up from there. So you're basically saving money, guys. Somebody's paying this, right? It's not like the car is just losing its value and the dealer is losing. No, they're not losing. Whoever bought it is losing, okay? I would say is worth highlighting. The depreciation factor is one of the main disadvantages about buying, purchasing a brand new car. Okay, if you're ever asked to submit some kind of disadvantage of buying new, this would be my first go-to. You lose a lot of money. The car depreciates most at first. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna do a bit of math here. So I'm going to skip down to the example. I made this table just for our first round, but most of the time the province will not give you a table. You will just be kind of expected to know how to do it. So I would suggest put an example in your study sheet after this. Okay, I'll show you how to do it without a table in a bit. So it says Dinesh is a carpenter in Thompson. He wants to buy a pickup truck. The truck is valued at $28,595. The estimated depreciation rate is 20% per year. So we've got the value of the car when it's brand new and how much it's dropping per year as a percentage. It could be an actual dollar amount. They're giving us percentage. So A, what is the depreciation amount? Like what is the actual loss after 3 years? And then B, what is the residual value of the truck after 3 years? Okay, so residual value is how much is left. I will in brackets, I'll put left over. That's what it's asking for here. And this one here is asking for the actual loss, like how much has the car lost. Okay, so that's basically, if you translate it, that's what it's asking. Another thing worth highlighting is when you have depreciation questions, they will never ask for taxes, okay guys? You don't have to worry about taxes. They told me that. I email the province all the time when I have a question. Depreciation, you won't have to worry about taxes. So please don't be adding taxes. The question will not hint at taxes either. It will just be calculate the depreciation or whatever. So year one, let's do some calculations. 28,595 times 0.20. That is taking 20%. I always want you to think of 20% as 20 over 100. If you want to get rid of the percent symbol, just slap 100 under the number, and that's how I get my 0.2. So that's my calculation. Grab your calculator if you have it. And I will show you how to keep numbers on your screen to make this faster. Right? So you multiply it by 0.2 or 0.20. It's a whole number in this case. So the amount you're losing the very first year is 5,719. I'm going to go 0, on this just to get you into that habit. It doesn't hurt. Okay? Residual value. We're going to go 28,595 minus 5,719. So this might, I hope this doesn't confuse you what I'm about to do here, but I'm going to go 28,595 minus 5,719. Okay? So you get 22,876.00. Notice what I do normally is if there's supposed to be a comma, I don't want you to write the commas down. I leave a little bit of a gap to show the hundreds and the thousands, right? So that's how much your car is worth after the first year. You bring that into your second year calculation. So 22,876. You find out 20% again. So I have that on my calculator already. So I'm just going to take that answer. I'm going to go times 0.2 or 0.20. And you lost 4,575 and 20 cents. And at this point, I'm just going to show you that I'm subtracting from the top number. Okay. So I go 22876 minus, I don't know if you are familiar with this part right here, but watch what you can do. See that answer on your screen? You can just go that minus and you press the answer button. It prevents you from having to write this all over again, and then you get that number. If that throws you off, just type it all. If you like typing, just type it all over again, right? So now our car is worth 18,000 something at the end of the second year. They ask us for one more year, so we're going to go 18,300, and we're losing 20% again. I don't know why I cleared it on my screen. Shouldn't have. And the third year, you're losing 36 something. Subtract it one more time. You get 14,640 and 64 cents. So this is a bit of a blueprint of what's happening in the background of one of these calculations. Now we can answer. A is the depreciated amount. How would we do that? We would add, look up carefully, I'm going to add up all these three, and that's going to be the depreciation amount. I would show the work. I know sometimes we are very eager to get that final answer, but I'm telling you, you have a very good chance of scoring quite a few marks if you show us the work. Because if you make a mistake along the way, it's not so big of a deal. 13,954 and 36 cents. That is the loss, the depreciation amount. What I will do is I will highlight the depreciation amount in green, right, and just highlight that in green as well. So it's basically all of this. If this helps you, I'm going to circle that it's those three amounts that gave me the loss, the depreciation amount. For B, it's the residual value. My residual value, folks, is just 14,640. Okay? That's it. I'm going to use a different color for that one. Where did I get that from? I got it from right here. I want you to know how else you could have also taken the price brand new, 28,000. You can't see that, can you? Yeah, and exactly. And subtract your loss, you would get this as well, right? So keep that in mind. Okay. Because I can't cover all possible scenarios. Will it always be 20% every year, guys? Is it possible that they give us a year one, let's say 25%, and a year two, 15%? They could give you all 3 years a different percentage. That is up to the question. Okay? So you just have to read carefully, please. But in and of itself, the whole mechanism is still the same. The procedure is still the same. Okay? All right. I'm going to ask you to go to 5. And we're going to skip the we're going to skip that template right here. I'm going to do the next question without the table, because that's how you're supposed to know how to do it. Okay? And we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to change this after 3 years. We're going to cross the 3 and just say 2 years. Okay? I'm going to tell you from my experience in all these years, 3 years is the max I've ever seen. Most of the time it's 1 or 2 years that they ask you to do this for. Okay? Determine the total depreciation and the residual value, right? Total depreciation, let's call that A, and the residual value, let's call that B. They want both of those things after 2 years for the following vehicle. Assume that there's a 15% depreciation per year. So we're going to go year 1. The car is $26,101.50, right? That's what the table is telling us. You don't need to worry about dollar signs. You don't need to worry about any of that as you're working, as long as your final answer has all the units. So we're going to figure out what 15% is of that. 26,101.5 times 0.15. That's how much you lost year 1. I know this isn't the prettiest way of showing the work, but I think it's the most efficient way of showing your work. Year 2, so I'll subtract the 26,101.50, right? And I'll subtract what I lost. So at the beginning of year 2, your car is worth this much. And in this case, we're losing 15% again. So I'm just going to leave that on my screen and then go times 0.15. And there's 3,327.94. I subtract it one more time. $18,858.33.
Excuse the interruption. Alan Lee to the office, please. Alan Lee to the office.
Total depreciation, let's just be clear that you're telling your audience you know what you're doing. I'm going to add these two numbers. And it's $7,243.17. Residual value. We already did all the work, right? And I'm telling you this, if the province says show work, it's not optional. You will lose marks if you don't show work, okay guys? So however you want to organize your thoughts, however you want to demonstrate that you know what you're doing, that's up to you, okay? I'm just going to say this, for depreciation, all I would say is have one example in there. Maybe this is your example, okay? There's no formula, there's not, like I can't help you otherwise. So this is what I would say is under depreciation. So I will just say add to study sheet. Okay, so highlight that. Some of you may only need one year worth of loss. That's all you need. That's your template. And then just repeat it for as many years as they throw at you. Okay. Yeah. Like multiply this by 3, you mean? Unfortunately, you can't. As you can see here, the number is not consistent because it's always 15% of what's left. I was going to mention that. I really appreciate that question. Don't just find 1 year multiplied by the number of years. It's going to be wrong. Okay? So I don't know if you should. I'm not going to make a note because I feel like it's too busy as is. But yeah, you have to do it every year, unfortunately. I may show you a different way. Once you grasp this one, I may show you a different way, and some of you might appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop talking for a bit and allow you some time to review what you've learned between yesterday and today. And then I'll add some pros and cons and things like that. We'll add more to our notes. So for now, I'm going to ask you to try pages I'm going to say 9 to 12, okay? Just skip everything and then go to page 9. And that's your homework, right? Page 9 to 12. There's lots of space to do the work, so it may seem like a lot of pages. And the first table is very basic, right? There's the base price, the options, the freight. And I want you to find the total cost after taxes, right? After tax. So I essentially want you to add taxes to whatever is given. Sometimes there is no trade-in. Sometimes there is a trade-in, right? Another curveball here is that the freight is 3% of the base. So you need to find 3% of the base price to figure out your freight cost, okay? So I'll just let you figure it out. If the table right now is confusing you, maybe go to question 2 and try that one. I will circulate and make sure that you're doing all right. Okay, so pages 9 to 12 for now, for you to try.